4. The Old Guitarist and the Bluebird, 2002. Part 1. Lost in the tall grass beneath the old train bridge. Past the old country road, out in the tall grass, lies an old railroad bridge, its support stones crumbling, its red rail rusted, time-weary and weather-worn. Trains no longer come down the tracks, no sound of the rumble like thunder, or the shrill whistle of the horn. Instead, only the wind that sounds like crashing waves through the tall oak trees remains. The sounds of birds can be heard all around in the humid woods, late afternoon lazy calls. A spiraling wisp of dust rises through the air in the wake of an old automobile rounding the corner of an old country road, the sound of its engine breaking the quiet symphony of nature, quieting the birds, muting the sound of the wind through the trees, and overshadowing the buzzing of insects. The vehicle pulls to the side of the road. Its tread-worn tires rest against the tall grass of the field. With a creak that sounds of old age, the driver's side door opens. An old man, dressed in black dress pants and an open-collared white shirt, steps from the vehicle. His face is well worn by time, his hair gray and his eyes a cold blue. He walks with a cane. He carries with him no real sense of hurry. As he rounds his old automobile, he stops at his trunk. He fumbles with the keys for a moment, sliding the key into the lock with hands that seem less steady than they used to be. As the trunk groans open, the old man trades his cane for a large brown leather guitar case. The case is old, worn in many spots, and looks like the slick hair of a wet hunting dog. With an unsteady pace, the old man negotiates his way through the field of tall grass that brushes against his knees. He runs a hand down as he walks, letting the tips of weeds and wildflowers brush against the roughness of his fingertips. The wind resumes. A breeze against his back blows his short hair playfully about. The automobile, now small in the distance and shimmering from the heat of the road in the summer afternoon sun, is content to reside as the old man goes about his business. The old man rests beneath the shade of tall trees beside the old railroad bridge. Sitting, his back against the cracked concrete surface, and the red rusted rail above him, he unfastens the straps to his guitar case. The sunlight catches the silver tuning keys in a momentary brilliant flash as the dark wooden acoustic guitar is released from its confines. Resting the guitar against him and supported by his knee, the old man presses his rough fingers down against the cool metal strings of the guitar. With his other hand he strums down upon the strings, letting the backs of his fingernails run down and vibrate each individual string. Satisfied, he lets the sound of the chord ring out, a single note, part of no song or greater piece. Once the sound fades, the wind answers back in a small whisper through the leaves above. The old man stretches out his fingering hand, crackling his knuckles in short pops, then follows suit with his strumming hand. He looks to the trees above him, as though contemplating some momentary idea that seems to flit from his mind as soon as it has come in existence. The soft sunlight that filters through the green leaves glows in emerald green that shimmers in the small winds. Looking down once more to the guitar, the man begins to play, strumming through chords. He plays nothing he has learned, no known songs. Today he plays as he feels. Small sounds, simple chords and single notes, establishing a beginning, something new, something a little sad. The old man continues to play. His eyes are tightly closed. As the chords build up, then repeat, the old man flicks out his tongue to wet his dry, cracked lips. Then he begins to sing. Oh, love, oh, loneliness, I never had need for you. Oh, life, how long the leaves fall, long days, long winter days, cold breath and frozen rain. For love, oh, loneliness, I've never had need for you. Say, life, how long will I hang from your chain? Long days, long lonely days, broken hearts and summer rain. Oh, loneliness, overly long. Everything you've taken from me is gone. Oh, love, be beside me. Oh, love, forever green. There is no audience, save for the birds that remain quiet throughout the old man's solitary performance. The wind meek against his voice, nothing more than a tickle upon his sweat-filled brow. His eyes remain shut. There is no world that exists beyond the song. There is no old man, no field, and no broken railroad bridge. The song continued, wordless, more soft strums and muted chords, slower and slower until all that could be heard from the hollow of the guitar was the faint sound of the old man's rough fingertips, barely touching upon the coiled strings. Small vibrations fade away. The sounds of nature return as though the world has slowly snapped back into existence. His eyes still closed, the old man let his mind wander through the narrow halls of the memories in his mind. They weren't as clear as they used to be. The cobwebs and dust of age have covered each in a fine layer. Lingering on the only memory that seemed clear, he thought back to when he was young. It was a summer day, like today, hiding beneath the railroad bridge, lost in dreams in the tall grass of the field. The tracks rumbled with the distant sound of an approaching train, like a coming storm on the cloudless horizon. Each new train accompanied a sense of excitement, something new, something unseen before. To people of small towns and small means, trains can be a magical, mysterious thing, an emotionless vessel meant only to travel along a set path, but what we find along the way can often amaze us. Part 2. Bluebird Calling. When I was about 15, I made my own journey by train, something my parents later called a very foolish decision. I saw it differently, of course. I thought it was one of the most interesting things I had done all year. After all, it was summer. I was off school, and I was young and careless. I saw no future past being a teenager. No great thing I should be worried about. With a pack of salted potato chips, a peanut butter sandwich, and a couple bottles of Coke, I stole myself on the back of that train one day. There was no great plan, no moment of hesitation, or great reason behind my action. Instead, I lay there, beneath the rail, looking upward at the bottom of the tracks. I heard the rumble of the northbound train and simply got up and climbed the hill, then jumped on board. The train was moving slowly enough that it was no big feat, although in hindsight it was probably something I couldn't even dream of doing now without the promise of some sort of terrible injury. Now I stayed on that train for probably about 2 hours. We picked up speed just as we got through the thick trees. For 2 glorious hours I sat on the edge, the wind in my hair and strong against my face like I was flying as free as one of those songbirds. The train slowed down again once we got a bit outside of town. That is when I leapt once more into a field of summer wildflowers and hundreds of those tiny white butterflies. I remember thinking that this was a place that my feet had never been before, not before this day. This was a field that was different from every other field I had seen prior. I was from a small town, and embarrassingly, I had not gotten a chance to get out much. So this small field, that probably held no special meaning for anyone else, had a pretty big effect on me. In some small way, every time I think of open fields with their yellow and white blooms of flowers and tiny streams, it reminds me of that first feeling of really being somewhere new. Fields aside, there were more things to see once I got a bit further along. I reached the first gravel street about 30 minutes later, lined with unfamiliar houses and unfamiliar people walking about and doing familiar things. An old lady took notice of me, paper bag full of groceries in hand. I wondered if perhaps she was as curious to see a new face as I was. I nodded respectfully. She looked away. I followed the road, kicking the same rock over and over in some kind of game that I could neither win nor lose, till I came upon a park. It was already late afternoon. Day still had plenty of light left, but gray clouds were approaching through the trees, and the air smelled of that wet, intoxicating scent of warm rain. I lingered by a swing set, climbed up a slide. I spun the merry-go-round once, just to see how well it went round. I drank from a fountain, thinking the whole while that the water must taste strange because I was somewhere new. A short distance away I heard a voice. There was a faint sound of thunder in the air, a low, whiny grumble. I walked on until I came upon a pavilion. A girl stood alone, her hands against the wooden railing. Her back was away from me, and her long, light brown hair blowing in the soft wind. With a voice that was meek yet beautiful, she sang a song that I had never heard before. Bluebird calling to me, I want to sing as well. I want to fly high on feathered wings. I want to swoop through the rainbow sky. Bluebird, bluebird, come calling through my window. I want to play. Tell me something beautiful. Tell me something true, something blue, bluebird calling to me. Sing for me and I will sing for you. Let us fly as far as our voices will carry us. We have wings and words are wings. Bluebird calling to me. We will soar and we will swoop through the rainbow sky. Before then I had heard girls, and their voices before. I had plenty of them about in school, and even were friendly with some. Despite most other boys my age, and a bit younger, thinking that girls weren't good companions because they didn't play baseball as well or wouldn't play catch with dead frogs. But I had not heard a girl's voice quite like this. There was a sadness and a sense of hope that I heard in there. It made me feel small in a big world, but not in an entirely bad way. I did not even need to look upon her face to fall in love with her. Her voice had already stirred something inside of me that would forever cease to cause me great unrest. However, when she turned and looked upon me, realizing that she had an uninvited audience, her beauty nearly stole away what little wind was left in my lungs. I had read stories about there being creatures, the kind that could trap a man's heart with just one look, beautiful and mischievous elves and fairies of the forest. Small pressed red lips, large eyes. I was sure I had stumbled upon such a creature and was for the most part doomed. She tried to say something. Perhaps she was embarrassed. Instead, she held on to a moment of awkward silence, our eyes meeting and exchanging something that words could not, then ran off. I did not think to follow, did not feel that I could if I had wanted to. I had done nothing at all and was out of breath. She was gone and I was alone. Large raindrops fell down through the trees. Soon the air was damp with thick rain and fog so dense I could see nothing past the pavilion of the park. I sat for about an hour, waiting patiently for the storm to pass, flinching at every crash of thunder, every brilliant flash of lightning. I had no want for feelings such as love. I had gotten by for many years with just a notion and tale of its very existence. Until then I had never quite fully understood loneliness. Late that night, I was met with the end of my father's belt. My punishment did not hurt me, not in any sense of a grand scale. My mind was miles away, focused on a beautiful face, and thoughts of our lips one day meeting, of her singing beautiful songs, me listening intently, hanging on every note and every word. That night I dreamt of bluebirds and freedom. I dreamt of unfamiliar fields and butterflies, a beautiful voice, and a future I had no idea even existed, out there in the world I discovered beneath a railroad bridge. Part 3. Awake in a World Familiar. The old man sets his guitar down to the ground. A soft drumbeat-like sound escapes from the hollow and reverberates down the length of the strings. Reaching into his pocket, the old man pulls a golden ring. The emerald light of the sun through the trees reflects upon the surface and dances playfully. He grasps the ring tightly in his hand, closing his weary eyes once more. His cracked lips pressed as a sigh escapes from his nostrils. On his knees, the old man begins to dig a hole by hand into the soft soil beneath the old railroad bridge. The ground is cool against his sore hands. The smell of earth is in his lungs. He places the ring into the hole, pushing it down and away from the light. Reaching to his dirty hand, the old man struggles with his own ring. After a moment of twisting and sliding, he removes the golden band, placing it into the ground next to the other. He replaces the small pile of earth, flattening it down. The old man replaces his guitar back into the worn case, fastening the buttons and sliding the strap over his shoulder. With much strain, he gets back to his feet and begins walking through the tall grass once more. He pauses once to look back. He smiles fondly. A black truck comes round the corner, kicking up dirt and dust behind it as the old man opens up his trunk, replacing the guitar for his familiar walking cane. The black truck pulls up right next to the old man and his automobile. A man wearing a black suit emerges quickly from the vehicle, a frantic look upon his face. "Dad, what are you doing out here?" the man asks in a frustrated, hurried tone. He reaches into the back of the automobile and retrieves a black jacket, handing it to the old man. "You're going to miss the service." "Son," the old man quietly replies through the words, "you go on ahead and go. I figure I got a train to catch," the old man adds, handing back the formal jacket to the man dressed in black. A puzzled look crosses upon the man's face. He watches as the old man drives off in his old automobile. Holding the jacket in his hands, the wind blowing it about, he watches as tiny swirls of dust dance about him. Soon the automobile is gone, round the corner, past the trees. High in the sky, a bluebird is calling.